Level up your LA Kings experience with the new Vivid Seats Elite Seats. All the on-ice Kings action with even more exclusive access. Enjoy great seats to the game along with premier dining inside the Lexus Club with all-you-can-eat food and non-alcoholic beverages. Plus, get a free Team LA Kings item and parking with your purchase. Score your Vivid Seats Elite Seats tickets today and earn rewards on each purchase from the only ticket company that rewards you for buying. Experience it live with Vivid Seats, the official partner of the LA Kings.
You're listening to an LA Kings podcast. For more episodes of this and every other Kings program, visit lakings.com/podcast.
You're listening to All the Kings Men, the official podcast of the LA Kings. Now, here's your host, Jesse Cohen.
Joining me now, well, frankly, a man who needs no introduction, so I'm not even going to try Nick Nickson. How are you doing today, Nick?
Great, Jesse. Great to be with you. It's been a busy couple of days for me and my family. But,
I'm sure.
Just trying to get back to normal and get set for the postseason again.
Listen, no disrespect intended, but part of the reason I skipped the intro is that Mikey Alexander called me last night at the end of Kings Talk, the post-game radio show, which you allowed me to take over for you, and asked me what my favorite Nick Nickson memory was. And he asked me for two categories of favorite Nick Nickson memories, as a fan and as a Kings employee. And as a fan, I don't know if you've heard me tell this story a million times, but I know I've told it a million times on different platforms. My favorite Nick Nickson story as a fan is listening to you call the 93 Kings Leafs game. And I hope you called it. I hope I'm not fabricating a memory.
Yeah.
I was in Yosemite for Game 7, listening with a couple of other kids my age. I think I was 15 or 16 years old, and we were huddled in the car of one of the adults who had taken all of us up to Yosemite. And the AM reception up in Yosemite was not great, but it was just good enough that we could sort of hear what was happening. And when the Kings won the game to go to the Stanley Cup final for the first time, we erupted out of the car like lunatics. And of course we could, we were 15 or 16 camping in Yosemite. There was no sports bar to go watch. So that is my favorite memory as a fan. And I said my favorite memory as an employee. And then I went on and on and on, and I started crying, talking about, I'm going to start doing it right now. This is why I didn't do it. So we're not going to do it right now. Listen, I wasn't able to attend last night. Everybody knows I've got health issues that prevent me from attending. But I was taken not only by the on-ice ceremony, but also by the obvious respect that the media availability that you attended, that the assembled press corps showed you. And I wondered if you had a favorite memory of the last 48 hours.
Boy, that's tough to say a favorite one. But, as everybody knows, this is going to be my last year. And to be appreciated by the Kings organization, an organization I've been a part of for 44 years, the way they did it last night was fabulous for me and my family. And it was nice to talk to all of those media people yesterday before the ceremony. Everyone, of course, I knew, and a lot of them I've known for a number of years covering Kings hockey. So, yeah, and it's been a busy 3-4 days leading up to last night. I had friends and relatives come in from the Midwest, from the East Coast, and the Kings were gracious enough to give us a party suite at the arena for last night, and everybody had a great time. So I think just the whole scenario of leading up to my on-ice ceremony was really the favorite part of it. I mean, I don't want to nitpick, but yeah, it was great to see everybody who came out, and great to see all the people that showed enough interest in my career to ask me questions, and great to be able to address the crowd at Crypto last night.
Now, for those who don't know the behind the scenes runnings of an NHL broadcast, and why would anybody, over the last, let's just pick a number randomly and say 30 years, the technological changes, the structural changes of the inner bureaucracy of both the league, the LA Kings, any NHL hockey club, the relationships with sponsors, the evolution that's occurred you couldn't explain it in one sentence, right? You'd have to live it. You'd have to live it as all the changes happened.
Yeah.
One of the beautiful things of having somebody with as much experience as you have is that you get the benefit of working with somebody who has seen the changes, knows how the meat used to be packed, knows how it is currently packed. The downside is when that person decides to walk away, nobody knows how this thing runs, Nick. We're going to be calling you every day.
Well, it's interesting because when the Kings used to do simulcasts for the first, let's say, 17 years of the franchise's existence, only because they only did on average 15 TV games a season in those first 17 seasons. So when I came in 1981 and worked with Bob Miller for 9 seasons, 85%, 90% of the games we did were just radio. And then we did simulcast. And then in 1990, with the popularity of the sport growing and Gretzky coming to town 2 years before, the building was selling out. It was a management decision to do a separate TV broadcast and a separate radio broadcast, which is the way to do it. It's the right way to do it. And of course, with the popularity of the Kings soaring at that time, we had radio stations interested in carrying the games. We were on, I think, at the time, Prime Ticket, which morphed into, Fox Sports eventually. Maybe there was something in between, and right now FanDuel. So when they split it up, I did the radio play-by-play beginning, I think it was 1990. And as you know, Jesse, having worked on the radio side with the Kings now for a few years, it's a skeleton crew. You don't need a lot of people. I showed people the broadcast booths the other night at the arena, and you go to the TV booth and you can barely walk through it. In radio, you could pitch a tent.
Yeah. Which they have done in the past.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And I did the games, done the games with 4 different color commentators over the years, and with a board op. It was Steve Thrapp, the late Steve Thrapp, John Triconis, now currently Jake Warner. And it was just basically the 3 of us. And I remember somebody in Kings marketing when we were still at the Forum. This is when I was maybe 4 or 5 years into doing just the radio. And they say, okay, what about promo? Who's going to record these? And she said, well, just give it to Nick. He'll take care of it. And you're right, Jesse. Pretty much everything that's gone on radio over the years with the Kings has, and I say this not, to pump me up, but it's gone through me only because I think I have the experience. And I always wanted to make sure it got done the right way. And I've had great relationships with the broadcast operations people at the different flagships over the years. And we've worked together, and we kid ourselves like, we'll make the decisions for the big boys because, we know how the nuts and bolts, we know how it works. So, and it's been a labor of love. I wouldn't have done it unless I enjoyed it. As you know, I've archived all the great moments in Kings history. During the lockout years, 20 years ago, and even before that, I took all of Bob Miller's cassettes. When the computers came on board, I transferred everything into digital. So we have, some of the great calls in Kings history by Bob, by myself, and by the future Kings broadcasters. So, and that was a labor of love. And as you know, we used to use those every night on the broadcast. This date in Kings history, Marcel Dion scored his 500th goal, and let's listen to it. So, all of that stuff is I think with the listener, the fan in mind, because my way of always looking at a broadcast was, okay, I'm doing the game. I'm from start to finish. If I'm a listener, if I'm a fan, what would I like to hear? So that's what I tried to present to the people listening and watching over the years. And, hopefully they've appreciated it.
I am on an email list and I get, I don't know how many of them a week, but I feel like it's at least one per game. And it's me, our senior director, I think, of marketing is her title. I'm not even going to try and list everybody's titles, but at the bottom of the list is you, me, and Josh Schaefer. And honestly, there's no reason for me to be on these emails anymore. And they all start the same. Hi, Nick. Here are the marketing. And then it's a marketing email with like 8 people on it. And it's just directed to you. And the rest of us are just like, okay, Nick's got it, I guess.
The other thing, Jesse, is, as you know, even though you've not been with the Kings certainly as long as I have, but the growth of the sport on the ice also translates off the ice with the staffs that all these teams have. When I first started out, there were probably no more than 8 full-time Kings employees at the Forum. That included secretary, the GM, PR, travel coordinator, assistant GM. That was about it. Now, and I've told people this over the years, there's more people on the ice crew during the commercial breaks than there were in the front office when I started. So what was once a nothing marketing sponsorship department has morphed into a department that probably has combined over 20 individuals. And I think because I was one of the first that those emails when they started probably just had my name on it. And if people came on board, okay, let's make sure these people are involved. They're going to write the promos. They're going to make sure they're loaded up into the system and things like that. So I guess I should feel honored that I'm still considered.
So I've been essentially away from the office since late January. Those who follow know, why. And now I'm starting to find excuses to go back into the office, but generally speaking, when it's empty. But the other night I walked in and there happened to be 2 people there. I don't know why. No idea what they were doing or why they were there. It was very late at night and there was a game going on. And I had no idea who they were. People who had been hired, and I just wasn't around or not around enough, or my job doesn't call me to come into contact with them. I mean, the office is huge at this point, but because of the nature of your role, you get to, or have to, however you want to slice it, have this impact on how the club is presented. And so a guy like Darrell Evans, for example, who has been now with the club in his current role 25 years-ish?
25, 26. Yeah.
And prior to that was a player. I mean, it's not as if he was a stranger when he walked in back in 99, 2000, whatever year it was.
Right.
But he was not a broadcaster. And then I'm going to make a weird comparison. Or I'm going to ask you to make a weird comparison. We heard about Andrei Kuzmenko joining the team. And he said if he makes a bad play, Kopitar will shoot him a look. And he doesn't want to get the look. But it's not that Kopitar told him a certain way to play. It's not that Kopitar said you must play this way. He just doesn't want to get the look from Kopitar. And so the way that Kopitar likes the game to be played has inadvertently affected the way that his line mates and therefore the rest of the team plays. When you go through partners changes like you have, did Darrell come in and get a look from Nick Nickson if he, tried to talk over you or something or do you actually take your new partners aside and explain to them, don't do this, do this?
Yeah. I started my first color commentator full time was Brian Engblom. And he had never done it. He was living in L.A. He had been retired from hockey for a few years. And quick story on Brian, when he played for the Washington Capitals, I used to go down the stairs to the locker room level at the Forum, and we would do a live interview on radio only with a King in the first intermission and a visiting player in the second intermission. And I remember interviewing Brian, and very well spoken. And I went back upstairs to the booth, and I told Bob during the break, geez, and Bob says, that was a good interview with Brian. And I said, yeah. I says, when he's done, he could be a good commentator. And so that was in our minds when we actually did hire Brian, because of the interview I did him when he was a player. So he had no experience really when he started. Then Brian left. I think he went to ESPN, which was a job he had to take. And we brought in Mike Allison, a former player who had no broadcasting experience. Then he left. And then Cami Granado, when the building was going to open, they decided to bring her in to try and market the team to the female side. You know, I remember Tim Lewicki, our president, said, Nick, we've got to fill the seats at a new building. And I think this is going to be a good move. So I said, fine, let's do it. But she had no broadcasting experience. And she was still playing for Team USA and obviously a Hall of Fame player. And then Daryl came on board, again, with no broadcasting experience. So I knew what I was getting into, and I would try to just give them the basics. And I'd like to think that I was patient with all of them, but maybe if I had a bad night or I was tired and I didn't think they were on their game, maybe I might have, give them a look. I don't think, but it's a situation where we all have to learn somehow, and the best way is to do it on the air. I went through it. I mean, if you listen to my tapes when I was in the American Hockey League, you would be going, who is this guy? I mean, he's not going to do this. So I'd like to think I had patience with all of my partners, and they all developed over the years, and they deserve most of the credit. Brian's still doing games with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Mike is not, and I was so happy to see him at my ceremony the other night. Cami is now in management with the Vancouver Canucks. She's an assistant general manager. And of course, Daryl's been with me for 26 years. But I try to. The one thing I do tell them is, because they're not broadcasters, don't try to sound like a broadcaster. Just sound like yourself. And that would be advice I would give to you, Jesse, if you were starting and you said, Nick, what would you like to tell? I'd say, just be yourself, have fun, because I think the tendency for a lot of us when we start out as a young age, after listening to our favorite broadcasters, whether they're in hockey or other sports, is to try and emulate them, and you want to adjust your voice so you sound deeper and better. But just be yourself, have fun, enjoy the game, and be prepared, and you'll sound great.
That's certainly valuable advice. However, if yourself is somebody who devotes an incredible amount of time to meticulous preparation, that's a real big help. And I was trying to remember last night on King's Talk. I don't remember what the conversation you and I had was that caused you to show me your notebook. But yeah. I don't know if you remember. I was and still am utterly blown away at this tome you produced of handwritten notes. Yeah. Where does that I mean, preparation is, I don't think people realize this, and it's not just in hockey broadcasting, it's in any kind of performance. If there's this great story I love of, I think it's Ben Stiller or something, and he goes on, I don't remember which late night TV show, but I can't remember if it was his agent or his friend. Anyway, somebody says he did 40 minutes worth of, he prepared 40 minutes worth of material, and he spent however long honing that, long chunk of material. Then he goes on the show and it's 5 minutes long, or however long you get. And he said that, but of course it was dynamite. And he said, right, because what you don't see is all the work that goes into preparing for whatever. And so then when you do go out there and it turns into an 8-7 game against Ottawa in the early days of the season, or it turns into an 8-1 blowout against the Sharks, and you've got to fill Lord knows how much time. Although I guess the 8-1 game was a TNT or ESPN game. Yeah. But you know what I'm talking about. Games go sideways or they get really long, and you've got to be prepared. And my God, Nick, you prepare? Where does that where does that
Well,
attention span come from, much less the work ethic?
yeah, yeah. And people have asked me, how much do you prepare for a game? And I tell them, well, it probably averages out to, for every hour I'm on the air, I've spent an hour sometime before that game preparing for it. And during the hockey season, every day I'm at my desk. When I'm watching another game, I'm updating my game sheet for our next game, my black book that you had the honor to go through in the booth one day. I inherited, it's funny, the scorecard that I've used forever, I inherited from the guy who did the Rochester Americans before me. And then I tweaked it and put in categories and boxes and lines that I thought I could use. So that morphed into what I use. I keep track of the score of every team's game on their sheet. I update it with their score every night with who's in goal. So, like on the plane today coming here to Utah, I turned to the St. Louis page. Oh, the Blues have won 10 straight. They've outscored their opponents 41-14. Now, a lot of that you can now get online, but when I started, and you had to keep all this information yourself because it was not available like it is today. I still do the game by game for every player, goals, assists, points, plus, minus, penalty minutes. That's my routine. I'm not, it's funny because I had guests here for the weekend for my night last night, and the last three games I updated on the plane coming here because I was so busy with the family and everybody, and I said, well, in 2 months I won't have to do this again, and why am I doing it anyway? But it's my routine, right?
Yeah.
It's my routine, and as a matter of fact, I did it. I updated it. And I gave Hoover, our producer, some stats from my book. Kopitar's line in the last 7 games has 9 goals, and they're a plus whatever, and this is their number. Darcy Kemper has given up 11 goals in 10 games. Some of the stuff is available to everybody, but I'd like to think that the stuff I want to use that I think is going to be what the listener wants to hear. Again, if I'm a fan listening to the game, I think I've gotten it down to kind of a science where my tidbits will be maybe the best tidbits.
Now, I'm going to backtrack real quick to the notion of being yourself, because this is a conversation I had, I want to say, with my dad, and we disagreed on how much of this was extemporaneous and how much of this was prepared. Where did the Raven nickname come from? Did that pop? Did that pop into your head, or did you have that one locked and loaded for a while?
It's funny. My son, my oldest son, Nicholas, still plays adult hockey. A lot of the guys that he plays with, he went to USC with. They played hockey there. And I think maybe in Trevor Moore's first or second year, he scored a goal. And one of Nick's friends, or Nicholas, my son, texted me, and they had a picture of Edgar Allan Poe next to Trevor Moore. And I'm going, well, what? It dawned on me, right? Forevermore. So, and the poem mentions the Raven in it. So that was in the back of my mind. And I think Trevor scored, I don't know, a hat trick or an overtime goal a few years ago. And I said, score, the Raven, Trevor Moore, a play on the poem by Edgar Allan Poe. So that's how I think it started. Someone gave me like the base for it, and I kind of morphed it into using it on a goal call. And it's interesting because I remember when I said it, it's different. It's a different goal call, right? So Zach Dooley, the insider, says, oh, yeah, people are loving this online on the social. So I said, okay, maybe I'll do it. I don't do it all the time. I've done it a few times. But yeah, that's how that started.
The reason I ask, though, is that, because I mentioned it last night on King's Talk, and I said, you not only have to have the presence of mind to I'm sure there's a version of your subconscious mind that when somebody scores, you probably don't have to think about how to move your mouth to say what just happened. Like you've called
Right,
so many, like you
right.
just, okay, King's goal, whatever. And then if there's a moment that is truly unique, you say like, oh my gosh, that was
Yeah.
truly unique.
Well,
But then,
the most recent one, Jesse, is Quentin Byfield,
mhm.
right? He's on that goal scoring streak last month, and they showed the guy and his son
Yeah, the
in the
Rizzler.
booth. And
Yeah.
I don't follow social media that much.
Yeah.
Hey, don't follow it at all. But I'm told, okay, they rate food or menus or something like this, and if it's really good, they give it 2 booms and they give it 3. So apparently, I found out through Carlin Bay on the broadcast, Quentin Byfield knows who these guys are. Quentin meets them after the game, and they take pictures. So the next game, Quentin scores again, and it's his 5th straight game with a goal. So I had just seen the video of him with the guys, the boom guys, and he scores. And I said, Byfield has a goal in 5 straight games. Boom, 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 boom. And then Foxy was right there for the 5th boom. We both did it. Boom. So, that stuff, you're right. It's subconscious, but I think you have to have a comfort level in what you're doing for that stuff to come to the top at the moment it should, right? If you're a young broadcaster and you're thinking of 10 different things while you're doing the game, that's not going to happen. So I think experience, being comfortable with what I do, being aware of my surroundings, which I'm much more adept at than I was earlier in my career. It just I think people enjoy it. They like, and it's outside the norm. And people were tweeting and posting and Xing and Facebooking on that call as well. So
Now, when it comes to the end of the career, I forget frequently that I am inside the machine. And so, I've had fans come up to me in the last, well, not come up to me because I'm not around, but I've had fans reach out to me on various social media platforms or email or whatever. And they are stunned to learn that you are retiring at the end of the season. And I'm just going like, where have you been? Yeah, no, duh. Like they announced it at the beginning of the year, or, I talked to Nick about this, 2 years ago. Like I knew this was like, are there people who have reached out to you who just found out, within the last week or month or whatever it is?
Yes.
True,
A lot of people around the league when we've gone on the road from the start of the season. And I think we were in Chicago, a couple of weeks ago, and we played him twice in 2 weeks in Chicago. And the first trip there, and I don't think they realized, some of the broadcasters didn't realize it was going to be my last season, even though we had played them in LA earlier in the season. It was, we did a release on it at the start of the year, but sometimes not everybody around the league, the broadcasters, the media, the writers, people, management, and teams, reads all of that. So, and I had a question last night in the media scrum before the game. Have any former Kings reached out to you? And I said, well, not really, because I don't think a lot of them realize this is going to be my last year. Now, if they watched the Kings game last night and watched the ceremony, they know it's going to be my last year now. But it's just the way it's been all season. But as it's moved on, Anaheim knew it. Of course, we're in the same market, and they recognized me in their building when we were there for the last time. I think it was December or November. San Jose, their broadcasters presented me with a nice bottle of wine from Napa Valley when they were in town Sunday night. Couple of teams have recognized me on their board. St. Louis did it during a commercial timeout, which was very nice. So I'm very appreciative of that. But all this has happened like in the last second half of the season. because I think the word is getting out around the league. Hey, did you hear? Like if Columbus is playing Detroit and we just played Detroit, the two broadcasters for that game are going, hey, did you hear Nick's retired? Oh, I didn't know. So yeah, that's. But hopefully, I would like to think that most of the Kings fans are aware of it by now.
I am, and no disrespect to Kings fans, I apologize for saying this in advance. I'm frequently stunned sometimes. I'll be having passionate arguments with Kings fans about some mundane topic, and they'll toss something out like, that's just wrong. It's not a big deal. It's just factually incorrect. And I have to take a beat and go, oh, you don't actually have any idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I forgot that I'm in the machine, and
you've got to practice patience with what especially when you're dealing with the fans. Daryl and I did it, and you try to be as courteous as you can, and because you want them to understand the game better if they don't, right? You want them to get educated. That's the whole reason for calling in and asking a question.
Yep.
All right, I'm asking it. I don't know. Tell me. Or correcting them, or they correct me. We've had people call us on Nick. I heard you talk about 5 players who scored, 5 goals in a game twice in their career, and Daryl and I would name 3 of them, and then someone would call in and I can tell you who the other. Well, tell me. Yeah. So
right.
Sometimes it's a two-way street. There should be a two-way street.
I'm going to ask you a version every time we talk to a player or a front office staff member or whoever. I try, if I can, if I'm not, spoiling the appearance, I try to go to a fan, forum or something, and then just say like, hey, here's an opportunity for you to submit questions to me that I can then submit to them. So if it's Mark Nettie or whoever. And if it's a player, one of the questions that we get asked all the time, to the point where other fans have reached out and said, why do you keep asking this stupid question? And I go, I keep asking it because it keeps getting asked. Like people want to know. The question is to players, and Jim gets asked this all the time, I'm sure, what building is your favorite building, or whatever. So in this last season, you've been going to all around the league with the team, and there has come a point, I imagine, in almost every building, because the season's almost over, but it's not completely over. There, I'm sure, have been tons of games where you're like, oh, this is my last game in New York. This is my last game in Montreal. This is my last game in Toronto, etc. Has there been a building or a market where you stopped and went, wow, this is the last time here?
Yeah. Well, the last few on the road, Chicago, I've always enjoyed doing games in Chicago. For 2 reasons. The atmosphere, the anthem goes without saying, right? It's worth the price of admission just to go and hear the anthem being sung there and the crowd going crazy. And I always felt, and this is to our technician doing our game, the Jake Warner of Chicago, who we use the last few years, Bill Carambellis, the games to me always sounded good in my headset. You can appreciate this. Yeah. You want to sound good in your headset with the right mix of crowd noise, ice effects. It just, if it's not right, it bugs you. And if it's right, it's one less thing you have to worry about. Chicago, New York, we were there in December, and it was too early in the season for me to, and I'll be back in New York, maybe not necessarily to Madison Square Garden. I always enjoyed doing games in some of the Canadian cities only because of our broadcast location. So when you ask me that question, a lot of it would be where I've enjoyed broadcasting the games from, where are good locations. Vancouver, Montreal, Toronto, great build. The Madison Square Garden, since they refurbished it some 10, 12 years ago, where you're over the crowd, you're looking down on the ice, you can see everything, you're not blocked by anything. It's just enjoyable to do a game, a broadcast from there. And you can see everything clearly, which is important, especially on the radio side when you want to convey what you're seeing to the people that are listening. So in a lot of these cities, Jesse, I'll be back to. I have family in New York City. My wife's parents were from New England, and we'll go back to Boston and New England in the fall. I want to go back to Toronto in November every year and welcome in the Hall of Fame inductees. So yeah, some of those cities I'll be back to, and then some buildings, I take them or leave them. But yeah, so it's cities that we've enjoyed being in, but for me, it's mostly the building and the broadcast location that comes to mind.
Who's got the best media meal? And for listeners who may not be aware of this,
it's interesting. Years ago, when Bob and I were doing games, and I think Foxy was still with us. I think Daryl, maybe 25. We said, let's start rating the media.
Yeah.
And we said, maybe we shouldn't do this, because if we rate the buildings that are low, when we go there, they won't give us a meal anymore. But off the top of my head, Minnesota has always been good. The Minnesota Wild always put on a good show. The Boston Bruins. Vancouver for sure. San Jose.
Where does LA rate in the league?
LA would be in the middle. Yeah. What we really miss in LA on the afternoon games, and you appreciate this, Jesse, is getting there at 9:30, 10 in the morning for a 1 o'clock game and having your omelets made right in front of you. They don't do that anymore. So that knocks it down a couple of pegs.
Well, and we don't get tater tots anymore. I used to look forward to 1 o'clock games. For some reason, they got rid of the tater tots. It's insane. For anybody who's listened to me do King's Talk for the last year or so, now I haven't been doing it for the last couple of months because I've been doing it from the office. But generally speaking, when I do it from the games, I always say, you're listening to King's Talk. I'm Jesse Cohen, coming to you live from the Nickson Broadcast Center in the upper concourse of Crypto.com Arena. Now, that broadcast center was, to the best of my knowledge, was named after you at the opening of the building.
Actually, I think it was named when they saluted me for 25 years with the Kings.
Okay. When was I should know this. I'm sorry.
See, I should too. Let me do a quick math here. 81, 91, 01, 06, 2006. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Maybe not. I think was it when I went into the Hall of Fame in 2015? I think it was before that. I want to say it was my 25th anniversary year with the Kings. I'd have to check that, but I'm quite sure that was the time. So 2006, but I don't know the numbers. Yeah, that adds up because that was 19 years ago. Yeah, hard to believe. Yeah. I keep forgetting it's 2025 now. Jeez.
So the question, I guess, in there, although apologies for not knowing when the
I wasn't sure either.
Yeah. But I mean, that is, so the press box is named after Bob Miller. The media room is named after Chick Hearn. I think Ralph Lawler has I don't remember which part of the building is named after Ralph Lawler.
Yeah, I think it was the press entrance, but someone told me that's not there now that they have the building across town. So all the Clippers stuff has moved over there.
Sure, that makes sense. And you got asked a version of this question last night, but I mean, when you go to call a game and you walk through the door to the Nickson Broadcast Center, do you have a moment ever where you go, "Hey, that's me. I'm Nick Nickson. This is the broadcast center named after me," as a show of respect for the career?
Right? Yeah. Probably the first few weeks when the sign went up there, but now it's, I just go in. And you're the one that reminds me the most, because when you're doing the talk show, especially in the booth in the building, you mention where you're doing the show from, because I listen on the way home, and that's a reminder, obviously. So maybe I shouldn't think of it that way, take it for granted. I certainly don't, but I think over time you just get used to doing so many home games there for, well, 26 years the building's been there, going in and out those doors where my name is on. I just, okay, it's part of the door, I guess.
I mean, I part of the reason that I identify the location of where we're doing the show is out of when I started doing it, it was a way to make sure that I mentioned you every show. Because even if I'm not saying, this is still Nick Nickson's show, I'm at least saying I'm doing the show from Nick Nickson's home. I mean, not your real home. You have a real home. But,
right.
But
and I appreciate that. I do appreciate that, Jesse. That's very nice that you do that.
Is there any, not really sure how to ask this one. Is there any competitiveness in you as a broadcaster towards other broadcasters?
No.
Okay.
No.
And the reason I ask that is, and this may be coincidence, but when Bob retired, it was 44 seasons with the Kings, and there was a logo with the number 44 in it. And if I'm not mistaken, you are choosing to retire, and it will have been 44 seasons with the Kings. And I thought, well, I wonder if that's like a weird, because you could do one more year, and make it 45.
Yeah.
I wondered if that was coincidence or just
total coincidence.
Okay,
total coincidence, because before they made the change on TV with the talent 2 years ago, and they asked me to do the TV. And at the time, at the start of 2 seasons ago, it was going to be a simulcast, and Daryl will be down between the benches and Jim will be in the booth with you. I was going to do just one more year, which was going to be last year.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they brought me into the offices, Luke and Kelly Cheeseman, Michael, Terry, they explained to me not why, but what we're doing. We'd like you to do the TV. And then Luke said, well, we'd really like you to do 2 more years. So I said, well, let me talk it over with my wife. And I did, and she was on board with it. And I said, okay, I'll do 2 more years, and then I'm going to retire. And it just turns out as a coincidence that both Bob and I will have been broadcasting Kings games for the same number of years, 44.
What is that kind of change of plans due to your emotional, mental, physical relationship momentum? Like that's got to be a huge change of, I mean, I get upset if, I have to change an appointment ahead or behind by 30 minutes. I'm like, oh, come on. What is it? What is this? To tack on another year of a career that you've already decided to sort of wrap it up.
it wasn't so hard to tack one on because, okay, my routine continues, right?
Right.
It's just, get the summer off, start ramping up in August, and away we go when preseason starts. And, health-wise, touch wood, I still could do games, and I don't want to do games where I'm unable to be as sharp doing the game as I've been over the years. But I think I want to be able to do things when I want to do them and be healthy enough to do them. Travel, play golf, watch my grandkids play their games, just do whatever I want to do whenever I want to do it. Now, maybe my mindset, my emotional state will be a little different next fall when the hockey season starts and I'm still sitting on my couch or out on the golf course and, oh, the Kings are playing tonight. But I think because I've had time to really plan this, and I'm good with it. To be honest with you, and it's not to toot my own horn, but I've had broadcasters come up to me this year knowing it's my last year, and they've said, "You're really going to retire? I watched your game last night, and Nick, you still got it. You still can." I know. I feel that way too, but it's. I want to be able to do things. We save and for our retirement, and you got to be able to spend it at some point, and I want to be able to spend what I've saved for and enjoy the rest of my life.
Well, listen, you know that we have that purple chair in the office that I share with Jared Shafford and Zach Dooley. And if you're ever bored, you know that chair is open for you. And if we absolutely have to, we'll kick Jared out of the office and you can have his desk.
I'll still be around. You know that, Jesse.
Yeah.
I'll still be at the home games, and I've told other broadcasters around the league, I'll see you when you come to LA. I'll see you in the press room. I've been watching hockey games as a fan. I remember probably the first game I went to, I was 7 years old, 1960, watching the AHL, American Hockey League, and watched that for 10, 12 years. Then out of college, I started doing AHL hockey and then NHL hockey. I mean, it's part of my fabric. I mean, I just love the game, love the people that are involved in it. It's a great sport. It's a consummate team sport, as you know, and I'll be around. It's not going to be cold turkey. I'll be at a lot of games next year.
You're going to drive out to a lot of Ontario Reign games now?
I just might.
All right.
Might. Yeah. Maybe I'll do a doubleheader. Ontario.
That's brutal. Every now and then there'll be like Mikey Alexander will do that, or the front office staff will do that.
Right.
It's brutal, just brutal.
Yeah.
Listen, I cried last night on King's Talk because Mikey Alexander called me in and asked me that question, and I will attempt to wrap this up here with the same answer to the question without crying. There was a game, I can't remember if it was Christmas at the end of the season, but you gave me a card, and it just said very simply something along the lines of "Thanks for joining the team and making everything better." And I've said it time and time again. I'm going to say it again now. The grace with which you have allowed me to come in and, kind of step on your shoes a little bit. Like, you may not see it that way. I do. I'm cutting you off for those who don't know, because I can see you start to, to react. But in my mind, I'm doing your show. And I understand that I'm doing it because you were perfectly happy to not do it anymore. You get to go home at a reasonable hour, and I'm left in the building until very late. But in my mind, I miss driving home from the game and hearing Nick Nickson hosting King's Talk. And, when Jim Fox says on the broadcast, that the Kings record in games where they score 3 goals or more is 34-0-2, and then references me, like, that's silly to me. Like, that's not my I don't own that stat. I just happen to like that stat very much, and so I reference it all the time. But in my mind, that's the sort of thing that, like, you're the one who tracks that sort of thing, and you're the person. And so, like I said, the grace with which you have allowed me space to come in and be myself and create my own part of the team has meant the world to me. I might start crying again. And I really am going to struggle. I think I've told you this before, but one of my prized possessions is a puck signed by you, Bob Miller, Jim Fox, and Darryl Evans. And I got it at a fan event. I don't remember how long ago. But it's going to be very difficult for me, both as an employee and a fan, to experience the Los Angeles Kings moving forward without the voice of Nick Nickson. So thank you for everything as a fan and as a, Jesus, I'm crying again. This is what cancer does to you. Sorry. Anyway, thank you for everything.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the kind words, Jesse. And, you look back and you like to think that you put a stamp on some things that people have enjoyed. You've kind of laid the foundation, and then other people come in and they build on that. And that's basically what you're going to do. And whoever takes over TV and radio full-time next year, that's going to be a younger generation. And for those of us that have been involved in it, to me, it's only natural that we would help make that transition smooth for anybody. And the first thing I noticed with you is your enthusiasm and love for the sport. That's where it starts. If you don't have that, don't show up, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And everybody has said that about everything that they do in life. So I'm glad that in some small way I've been able to kind of foster your career and transition to what will be, I'm sure, in a couple of years, bigger and better Kings Talk with Jesse Cohen and whoever, because social media has changed. New ideas, new marketing strategies. As we all know, broadcasting, we don't know where broadcasting will be, where the games will be aired, radio, TV, apps, internet, who knows? It's all changing so quickly. So, good for all of the young people, younger people than me, obviously, which is most people, that had the enthusiasm to carry it on. So all the best to you.
Final question, and I'll phrase it as a yes or no, so that you don't have to. If the answer is yes, you don't have to tell me the answer, because people keep asking me who's going to replace Nick Nickson, and I have to tell them honestly, I don't know. I know I'm aware of the conversations, I'm aware of the potential possibilities, but I don't actually know the answer. Do you know the answer?
I do not. I do not.
That's what I thought. Okay.
I do not. I know a lot of people have inquired. Some of them are already doing games with other teams. But I don't think the Kings know yet. I think that's what they'll figure out during the off season. But I'm being very truthful with you. I have no idea.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, because the reality is nobody could replace Nick Nickson.
Well,
Nick, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it. And hopefully I will see you face to face before the end of the season.
And don't be shy. Make sure when you're back in the booth next season, have me on as a guest. I'd love to do it with you.
Nick, listen, you are going to be so tired of me in your retirement. I honestly, like, the fact that I've been away from the club for the last, however many months. For those who don't know, Nick has an archive that I covet. And I'm tired of pretending I don't, and I want to get my grubby little hands all over that archive.
All right.
All right. Thank you for joining me, Nick. Enjoy Utah, and Kings fans, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you soon.